Okay, I think we are live. Are we live? Does it look like
We're
we're live?
live.
I
It
think.
says we're
All
live. It
right,
says we're live.
excellent. I'm so happy to see it. So, Zach was blurry a minute ago, but Zach's back, thank goodness.
Yep. I
And
took
thank God I'm having
penicillin.
a
Now I'm
good
healthy.
hair day. So we're all in a good mood. I think today we're going to be able to see uh, our comments. And so if anybody does have comments, I think we are going to have access to them today. So let me just jump on there and make sure that is, where's our chat? There's our chat. Okay. The chat is open. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat just in case anybody has any questions. Let me just start with our introductions and disclaimers. So this is Dr. Jon Grayson, noted OCD author and well-known OCD guru. I always call you a guru. And then here is Mr. Zach Pacha, who also very well known in the field of treating OCD and anxiety disorders, now co-chair of the National Social Anxiety Center. And I'm Dr. Katy Manetta, practicing psychologist and hopefully pretty decent OCD therapist, but remains to be seen. There's uncertainty in everything. And just to let everybody know, this broadcast is not a substitute for therapy. If you're really experiencing a mental health crisis, go to your nearest emergency room or call 911, and certainly do go and seek out mental health treatment, because all the things that we're talking about today are symptoms and problems that you can find really good treatment out there for them. So consider that. All right, so today we're going to be talking about one of our viewers' questions that I thought was just an incredibly astute question, and that really, I think, helps to define some of the fissures that exist in the field of OCD treatment principles today, and that I thought would be a very fruitful conversation for us to have. So I'm just going to read at least a part of the question, but you guys stop me at any time. If you say stop, I want to discuss just that portion of it, and we can stop there. But
Stop
if
it.
not, I'm just going to sort of, well, we're not going to stop it before I've read it, Zach. All right.
No, never mind.
So this is from our viewer, Raphael, who says, "We all know that there are no perfect decisions in life. It's unlikely but possible that being reasonable may make me miss a chance to be safer and happier. If that possibility is disturbing me and pushing me to be unreasonable, would learning to accept it help me be more reasonable without having to expose myself to scripts where I imagine doing things that are against my values?" And as the example, Raphael gives us the example of the P-OCD, pedophile OCD fear, right, that some people with OCD have. And currently, the treatment, I think, approach that we use is is the use of scripts, exposure to thoughts of that fearful, scary outcome, right? That maybe this will happen, that somehow I'll be accused of this, or that I'll do something that's so sort of antithetical, against my character, right? And all of the terrible things that would come about because of that situation, and that we consider the idea of exposure scripts to be an important part of the treatment for that. But
I
what
can only,
Raphael is
I can,
asking is,
I,
do I really have to do that?
so there's a short answer and a long answer. God help us if I get into the long answer, but I will. But the short answer is, you only need to do this if you want to get better. So you don't have to.
Yeah.
The longer answer has to address, like, why would we choose to have somebody do it? Somebody with POCD, pedophile OCD, what would be the nature of why we're suggesting they consider what if X actually happens? And there are and the idea of reasonable, I have a lot of trouble with the word reasonable, because
Me too.
reasonable is a probability statement. Reasonable, so I never get to do anything where I know for sure. I can't trust my senses to tell me the truth. I mean, if you get married, I say this all the time, sorry for all the people who've heard it, but unless you're psycho on your wedding day, you feel sure you're going to be with this person forever. In the United States, 50% of you are wrong. So I guess if you get divorced after 1 year, you were wrong. 50 great years, you were guessed well. 7 years of bliss followed by 3 years of hell and a divorce. I don't know what you call it, but on your wedding day, what you knew, you didn't know. You felt like you knew it, and it seemed like everything was true. So trusting my senses, you give me anything, and it's like our senses lie, in terms of senses. There are studies of witnesses, seeing a crime or an event. So everybody is seeing concrete, real stuff. And guess what? Witnesses get it wrong. So I don't know what it means
Exactly.
to trust our senses. I can say we've got probabilities, but probabilities means the worst can happen. So we're not just simply saying with POCD, hey, let's imagine a bunch of awful stuff that you would not want to do. Like, what would be the point of that? Why are we having you do that? It's going against your values. Well, I mean, I guess if your value, if my goal is, hey, I want to have you be a comfortable pedophile, I think we could make a great argument that we're going against your values then, it's like, yeah, well, yeah, what the heck? Let's do that. So, but if your value is, this is ruining my life, this is ruining my
And let's just be
family's life.
clear, that would never be the stated goal of treatment. Let's just be very
Well,
clear.
it wouldn't be by anybody whom we would consider responsible. So if
Thank
That's
you
you.
right.
find the OC therapist where that's their goal, I would suggest leaving them.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that's just a recommendation. So the issue is like what are we exposing? Your value is, just because I don't like something doesn't mean it's a value. If I have contamination, I say my health is really important, that's a value. Well, if I'm engaging in low probability behaviors to make myself safe and I'm wrecking my life with OCD, sorry, you may not like that, but that is the consequence of your behavior. So you might be doing something that makes you feel safe and you're saying it's your value because it makes me healthier. But in fact, statistically, the amount it's making you healthy, if I'm changing something from 1 in 100,000 chance to a 1 in 1 million chance, that's a tenfold improvement. But it's insignificant compared to all the other things. Because you tell me anything you do, and I will find a bunch of ways you are risking your health even more, to say nothing of the stress you're causing yourself. So the problem is you can't do that OC behavior in an effort to make things perfect and not be anxious, risk your health, and screw up everybody around you. Going back to POCD. So
Hmm.
the issue is that the person with POCD can usually say, I don't want to be a pedophile. Cool, that's a plan. But they're afraid, maybe I am. They're afraid, how do I know I won't do it? Or it's even like, maybe I'll do it, but what if I really like it? And there are all these questions. So
All right.
if we do the gun test, which is never tells us truth, it's just kind of going like, well, here's a guess. And maybe in the gun test, you'd guess I'm not going to be a pedophile. But the issue is, I don't want to be a pedophile no matter what. And I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but I can't prove to you you'll never be one. Now, if the goal of treatment is, we think that you becoming a pedophile is really low probability, to get you comfortable with low probability, sure, that is our goal essentially, because our lives are full of a zillion low probability things that we cope with constantly without fear. And yeah, so the goal is to not be afraid of low probability. I don't want to be in a car crash. I might be in one. I can't drive if I'm unwilling to be in a car crash. But I'm really, I go with the odds. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. Don't want to die of a heart attack. Doesn't mean it won't, there's just a zillion things that might
Yeah.
get me at any moment. And certain things may be incredibly low probability, but it doesn't mean they're impossible, really unlikely. So go back to pedophile. Here I have this fear. And so part of the exposure, what I'll always ask somebody with pedophilia, what if you wake up tomorrow and you discover you're a pedophile? That is, you wake up and you know that, like, being with a 5-year-old, oh my God, that is incredibly exciting. You have no doubt you're getting aroused and it would be fantastic. What would you do? Now, if the person says I'd kill myself, we have to amend the hypothetical situation. Like in this scenario, you're condemned to life. Now, what would you do?
Now, what
And
would you do?
yeah, because how would you live that way? Because you know what? And they'll they're obsessing. They have to stay away from children. To which I'd ask, I'm just curious. Currently, if you see somebody whom you would think is an appropriate person to find attractive, and you find them, generally go up to them and ask if they'll sleep with you. Most of the time, people have told me no, which I think speaks to their social skills. It's like, wait, you can find somebody attractive and not ask them to sleep with you? How can you do that? You can have arousal and not just go after it. So you could be a pedophile and not go after it. And you know what? I don't know for sure, but I would bet that there are a bunch of people who have pedophile urges who don't tell anybody and would never do it. And because they think it's wrong. So they just walk around, they have those urges, but they're not going to give in to them. And sometimes people will tell me, yeah, well, that would be bad. I'd be a bad person, which I'm not sure because like I don't really ask to be attracted or not attracted to something. Like, it's like OCD. I don't have a choice whether I have OCD or not. I have a choice about what I do about it. I don't necessarily have a choice of what I'm attracted to, but I get a choice about what I do about it. Again, most of us, anybody who wants a monogamous relationship is going to find other people attractive. And the goal is like, yes, I don't have to give into that attraction. It doesn't make them any less attractive. So, but when they're saying how bad they'd be, I'll say like, so if you had a SIB, I love it if they do have a SIB, and they came to you and said, listen, I got to confess this to you. I have these urges where I like really want to mess with little kids, but I would never do that, but I just feel really bad. Would you tell them that they were bad? Would you tell them they should be locked up or whatever? For some reason, people are always nice to their SIB. I mean, at some point I will, but if they are, it's like, okay, so you have a double standard. You're bad, but your SIB is somehow forgivable. Why do we go through that mental exercise? Because the individual is going like, I don't want that to be true. Oh my God, it can't be true, can't be true. And I don't want to be a pedophile, as far as I know. But if I,
You do have to say it that way. Sorry, but sometimes it's
yeah,
so
It's
funny.
funny to hear.
It is. It is.
but
Yeah.
thank you. I always like to be, a comedian. But the fact is, I would have to do so, it's like if the worst happens, I don't have a choice. I have to do something. How would I cope? So the person who has this image of like, what am I, a pedophile? It's kind of like they stop thinking like that would be the worst. And it wouldn't be great, but it's like they almost treat it like if I'm a pedophile, I'm going to start diddling little kids. That's possible. And sometimes if I go through this, like, well, what if I am a pedophile and I do? Oh, okay, yeah, you're going to get in trouble. Like I can, like, but that's not a foregone conclusion. So, and so what we're doing is we're first of all getting them used to the idea that I can cope with something happens. We've talked on this show before that acceptance, is not this Zen happy land of like, oh, I'm a fully accepting person. Acceptance sucks. It means
Yeah.
I'm going to choose to live in the second best world. Your spouse dies. You're going to be miserable. Hopefully, in a year or two, you're going to learn to live without your spouse and have a good life. It's not the one you picked. You're still going to miss them, but you're hoping that you can continue living. Second best life. So, and again, if I have OCD, OCD can take me down and ruin my life.
Yeah.
But the lucky thing about OCD is with treatment, it doesn't have to interfere with life. So learning to be a happy person with OCD, that might be second best, but it could be a damn good life. And as we always say, if you overcome your OCD, you're actually better than normal because you'll cope with uncertainty where other people can't. So why do we do the other part of exposure? And by the way, exposure doesn't mean like I'm going to have a scene where I'm going to have you focusing on a little 5-year-old and do a really explicit sex scene of you
Yeah,
doing
let's,
all
and
this
you know
stuff
what,
to them.
John, I
Yeah.
think that this is an important distinction too, for people to understand that
To
when we're
highlight.
talking about, yeah, that when we're talking about doing exposures, we're not talking about coming up with some like vivid mental image of doing something that's against your values. It's more about the idea of, if this came to pass, how would you cope
There are
with the
always subtle
outcome?
limits, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
with contamination, yeah, I do things that people would agree or feel like that is incredibly disgusting. However,
yes.
in terms of
Yes, you do,
literal, in
John.
terms,
Yeah, you do.
thank you. But in terms of literal safety, the things that people regularly do and live with comfortably all the time. And the only thing about what I'm doing is it's more obvious, but it's not like, I'm not saying we're looking for needles in the street and we're going to stab ourselves with them because, odds are in our favor. But we're doing stuff that potentially risky. And, since 1979, I haven't died, nor do I have a trail of death and illness behind me. But back to pedophile. So, right. So we're
But
not
then
going to
again,
do,
you're fully vaccinated, so for another
well,
day.
in a way, and there's some evidence for this, doing all these exposures has
Yeah.
probably increased the biodiversity of my microbiome, making me stronger. So I'm looking forward to the day where I have to treat somebody for OCD. It's like, no, you can only go in the dumpster for 5 minutes once a week. You cannot spend 6 hours in there improving your microbiome. However,
John, you're
Contamination
going to
plus
outlive us
perfectionism.
all. That's right. Exactly
well,
I'm
right.
gonna be
I hope
perfectly
me outliving you.
contaminated.
I hope that's not because you're going to die young. Uh, so
I hope. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, go on.
So
Yeah.
what is the pedophile exposure? And the exposure we're going to do is generally, um, and I have to look at sexual pictures of kids engaging in sex, which is good because that's illegal.
Right.
But the person's constantly checking themselves for arousal. And they're constantly like, do I like this? Do I like this? Now, that's a useless check. And why is it a useless check? If I focus on my genitals and I feel like something, I will feel something. So I don't really get to know, is that because I'm focusing on it or because I'm looking at it? Secondly, I do this disturbing thing where I have some pictures from those little contests where like little girls, they're in beauty pageants, they're
Uh-huh.
horrible little things, like John Benet
Jean
Ramsey,
Benet. Yeah.
and have some pictures of those that I will show people, because here's the thing that's terrible to say, but it's true. First of all, the pictures are incredibly sexualized, and to say that is like you're looking
For
at this
sure.
little girl and like she's dressed to look up something, but within that, there's some way she look good, like her legs look good. Sorry, that's true. Like, you can't know what
It
you
was
don't know.
intentional. It
Yeah. Oh,
wasn't
Yeah.
yeah.
accidental.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
So
and
of
and
course.
so and so and so I
Yeah.
think if I have OCD, if I don't have OCD, I just let my usual outrage of like, how can they do that? That's horrible. Ah. But the fact is, she has good looking legs. Um. So if I have OCD and it's like she has good looking legs, oh my God, am I attracted to them? Let me think, and then I'm just going in this cycle. So
I
it's
love
like,
the glance down, John.
But that's realistic.
I
well, I
know
have to
it
glance
is.
at,
That's
so
completely realistic.
Katie's losing it this episode, Zach. I don't know. It's really scary if you
I
and I
guess
have to be the sane ones.
I'm
we'll
sorry.
do our
Okay, go ahead. Go
best.
ahead.
That's all
Go,
right.
go, go.
But
Sorry.
the point is that at the end of the day, like this person has to be comfortable. Yeah, you'll see some kids,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like, yes, you might think they're good looking, but the bottom line is, I have to get used to that and hope that, my concern is OCD. The arousal, if it's arousal, I can't tell because, again, a really horrible thing that happens to women who are getting raped. A good portion of women who are getting raped will lubricate. A
Yep.
smaller group will actually have orgasm. And this is a
Yeah.
nightmare for them because, you feel violated and there's a part of you screaming like, I didn't like that. Did I like it? And it's like the body has no choice in responding. So even a
Right.
Absolutely.
response doesn't tell me anything.
And when you
So
talk to
It's not the
people
proof.
who Right. When you
Yeah.
talk to people who were molested as children, often that creates this terrible experience of feeling like they were to blame because they
Right.
enjoyed the experience, but the body is
We're
what it
part of it.
is.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, part of it.
so with the pedophile, we're gonna kind of get used to, yeah, you're gonna see kids. Some kids are gonna be good looking, and we're not gonna call you a pedophile until you tell me you have absolute certainty that would be the best thing ever. And I always have to say, it can't be like you're afraid you have absolute certainty and you have to test it. This has to be, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And
Right.
this goes across the board. If I talk about somebody, either they're, somebody who's afraid, like, how do I know I'm not going to be, I'm not going to cheat on my partner because I see other people who are attractive. Well, in that case, we actually think it's appropriate. If you go to the beach, you're probably going to see a bunch of attractive people.
Right.
It's like, and again, generally, you probably just don't run up to all of them and find out if they'll sleep with you. Um, so being able to, there's, we are creative people. And so it's learning that I can have thoughts, I can think about things that are terrible. And, it's kind of interesting because the pedophile one seems the worst. We talk about harm OCD, it's like,
Right.
that's still bad, but like, we're more comfortable with harm, in a sense. I always like to point
Right.
out, although I
Well,
need a
it's,
bit,
I mean, the other big one, right, is postpartum OCD, right? People who are afraid of harming their sweet little babies, right? But hold on, I want to stop us there, and maybe
Okay.
cool.
Zach can jump in a little so that John gets a break because we have a question from one of our viewers.
Oh,
So,
cool.
any strategies on, and I'm happy the chat is actually working, but I'm actually, just to let everybody know, I'm not confident I'm actually seeing all the messages from the different platforms that we're
Katie,
streaming on.
Katie, don't
Yeah.
worry because we won't have time to answer them all anyway. So it's
I
okay.
know
We'll
that's
do as
true.
good as we
Okay.
can.
We'll do as good as we can. So, any
Yeah.
strategies on how to stay persistent in treatment? As some OCD sufferers now think and act OCD, moreover, think OCD sort of it's in autopilot, right? Because
Mhm.
we've lived for a long time doing this, and now it's become a habit, like a habitual thinking pattern. So, particularly for those sort of mental compulsions, et cetera, sort of how do we stay on track when we have this sort of autopilot response? Zach, do you want to?
Uh, the short answer is slowly but surely, day after day, daily practice, so on and so forth. And I'm not even gonna use the terrible joke of we'll just stop it, but I just did, so never
Right.
mind.
But no, Zach, and Zach points
Hey,
out the practice component, and we have to remember that this treatment is like building a muscle, right? So
exactly.
practice is
It
really
is
an essential component.
completely, if you're truly like what you just described, Katie, and it is
Hmm.
so habitual and that it wins out all the time, right? And I have
Yeah,
clients that that's where they've started. Um, it does. The acceptance piece, which sucks, is that it won't be an overnight thing. It won't be an over week thing. It won't be an over month thing, but it will be over time, slowly, day after day, moment to moment. And the best part is every time you are using ERP principles, it's a win. Whether
that's
it's
right.
1 second, whether it's hour later, I do it one more second. However slow it has to start, as long as you start and you keep, adding to it and keeping your gains. That's really what
Hmm.
it's about, which this is what sucks, I think, for I think sufferers to hear is like that's not really sexy to hear that as an answer for treatment. It's like, oh, really? So you're saying I have to work hard and do it over and over? Yeah,
Yeah,
but you also know I'm not bullshitting you,
It's not
and you
right.
also
harder
know
than
it can
ritual.
work.
It's not harder than rituals.
Very
That's
good point,
right.
John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, whatever you practice most will be the thing you do.
Right.
Yep.
One thing you can do, which I think would be really important, I think people find really helpful, is you can create a script for yourself that you record and put on some player where you can put on an infinite repeat. And the
Yes.
script is to help, now the content of the script is important, but knowing the content of the script in a sense is not. Like you listen to something 5 times, you're going to know it. That's not why you're listening to it. You're listening to it because when you get caught off guard, you tend to slip. So you're listening to it to make it such a habit that when you're doing, when you suddenly get hit and it's like, oh, all that stuff in the script. And the script should probably have 3 or 4 things that you need to cover.
Ooh, this is
One,
good. I like this.
I
Yeah,
thought I'd be specific.
Thank you.
He or she wanted specifics.
Yep.
that's right.
One, why would I take this risk? Because
hmm
that is almost the most important any sufferer can have. Because, it feels like whatever you're doing is a risk. So
Yeah.
why am
Yeah.
I doing this? Why am I taking this risk? And there are usually a good set of reasons which go to the other things that should be in your script. One, what have I lost to OCD? How much time have I spent? How much have I humiliated myself? How much money have I lost? How many jobs have I lost? How many relationships have I, like, what have you lost to OCD? Two, how have I hurt all the people around me? Not paying attention and not being with them, yelling at them because they're not doing my rituals, nagging them endlessly for things. Because no offense, if you have OCD and you're seeking reassurance, you are a pain in the ass. And the thing is, I mention that because you're making a choice. Because it's not nice to your loved ones, and you're making a choice. Do I want my fear to be important or my love for them to be more important? And when I choose to give into my fear and make their lives miserable, I'm choosing fear over love. And the thing about asking for reassurance, because it's like, but I feel like I need it. But the bottom line is, it's not like it works. It's not like I ask once and I'm done. It's over and over and over and endless. So it's not really serving you, which goes to
That's right.
the third point. In what ways do my rituals not work? You tell me a ritual, and I will find all the flaws in your ritual so that you either need to be much crazier or give up. And so many times you're doing the ritual, you're not getting the prize. You don't want to help
No,
the catastrophe happening. I'm sorry. We're all living in a world that might happen. It's like me saying, I don't want to be in a car accident. Outside of not driving, I have no way of not being in a car accident. I have what all of us have. I have the odds, but low odds are not no odds. So you make this tape and you put all this stuff in. Not only are you talking about what might happen from exposure, but you're putting in why I'm doing this. Because the bottom line is, how am I not the person I want to be? Because OCD is not making you who you want to be. And a lot of people have the doubt that they could actually be who they want to be. They may not have that much confidence. I haven't really met that person, so I know I can't convince somebody here who has crappy self-esteem that they can.
Mhm.
The only thing is, I know they can't be the person they want to be if they won't try. So I'd rather have them risk working towards it. So there is something, because the more you, and I would, how often do you listen to it? I would spend some time actively listening. I'd have time where you're just listening in the background, which is just there, because your OCD never rests. So why should treatment? So yeah, you're
Exactly.
walking around with this listening all the time, and that way you're screwing up that automatic habit.
so I just want to stop you for a second just to reflect on what you just
Take a
said.
drink of water, dude.
I
Just
can't.
to
Katie
reflect,
wouldn't let me make coffee before we started, so I'm sitting here with an
Okay.
empty cup.
well, priorities with an empty cup. I didn't force you into that scenario, John. You could have been more prepared. But anyways, I just want to reiterate what John
Notice,
said.
notice
So
she,
what
I
John's
just want to say this
talking
on the
about,
side. Notice she talked about what I could have done differently. She didn't deny that she forced me to not get it.
true. Oh my gosh, we're
Go on,
getting more
Katie. Go on,
questions.
mean
So
Katie.
all right. So okay, I know I am mean. I apologize. I have to crack the whip with you too. What am I going to do?
Mean
So
Manetti.
what
Mm.
John is talking about is this super
That's
important
gonna
concept,
stick.
right? It's called either, we either create a script or creating a narrative. Different people call it different things, but the concept is the same, right? That we're creating something that really exposes us to our fears and embraces the idea of living in this world where that uncertainty that exists, right? Where that feared outcome could actually occur. And we're talking about how we're going to live with it, not just how, but why it's important for us to learn to live with that uncertainty. And so it's an important concept in OCD treatment. I just want to throw out another one that I think answers this question that we were discussing. Part of the early work in OCD treatment involves coming up with really a list of all the different compulsions that you're doing. And, some patients will be like, oh, this feels like busy work, whatnot, right? And I'm doing compulsions all day. And boy, isn't this just a lot of work? It is a lot of work. But part of what it does is it really helps to focus us on all of those times during the day that we're going to need interventions, right? That we are, so it removes some of that automatic kind of stuff that
Yeah.
this person was
Awareness
talking about,
building.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And
And
so
I
we're
do
like,
want to
here's when
point
I
something out
know. Yeah,
about
go ahead,
that.
Zach. Hmm.
So I had somebody come back and start working with me again that we'll just say nicely they slip back into old habits. And I looked at records and their Y-box score, it was like cut in half a few years ago. And so when they came back to start working with me, it started creeping up again. And I asked them, I go, well, since we haven't met for a while, it probably is a good idea if you just, go collect some data, do some awareness, training and, find some things. And they're like, yeah, I think I know it all, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you might, and you might not, you might find a few things. And in my head, I'm like, I guarantee I bet they find something. And they come back and they're like, yeah, you were right. There's this, there's this, there's this, and this is a person that's, mind you, has done treatment before, so I consider them a veteran.
Yeah,
But it just goes to the fact that if you aren't really aware of what's going on, which let's be honest, a lot of us don't have great awareness of what we're doing in life
yeah,
in general, day to day.
that's
So,
true.
uh, I think that is a key piece of you have to figure out where is it actually happening and notice where it's happening.
Absolutely. We do have more questions to get to, guys. So
Uh-oh.
I want
yeah,
to run
Valentina.
one more thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
go.
The other way to get rid of the habitual stuff, that
Yeah,
is partially
Good.
doing the exposure, because we get actually exposure gets rid of uncertainty a little bit. It's not, is it happening? It's happening. It's dirty. It's this. I am living with this, which, you know, keeps it, so actively do, because we find that changing habits, generally, if I want to make changes, it's really important to do something a dead person can't do. Dead people, great at not washing their hands, terrible at touching something dirty, and then contaminating, putting their hands in their mouth. I mean, it's one reason I won't work with dead people, because they're only good at response prevention. So,
But
yeah,
man, they're the best.
doing
so
exposure.
good
And
at
Katy,
it.
I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thank you, because we do have questions. All right. So Valentina is with us. And she has a
Yay.
great question.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, Valentina. And by the way, that other question came also from one of our great viewers, Lewis. That was Lewis that was asking us that
Hey.
previous wonderful question. Yeah.
Our
So
buddies.
and Valentina says, and this is such a good question. I'm happy we're here to respond to this. I have an opportunity to get a job where I will often be in contact with homeless people. I really want that job, but my OCD says I should find a white collar job and avoid being unnecessarily exposed to carcinogens that homeless people might have on their clothes.
As a
I think
social
if I
worker,
think
I
I
love
think
this question. I
I
just
think
want
It's a
to
if
point
great
this out.
question.
if carcinogens are on the clothes of homeless people at a higher rate than they are in the environment wherever walking around, I don't think we have any data to that effect. Like, we're not seeing higher rates of them dying from cancer, nor do we see higher rates of all the people working with them from dying from cancer. So if he or she were to get cancer, we have no idea whether it's from homeless people. So, again, everything is odds. And just because I can make up an idea, um, I don't get any control about what ideas pop in my head. I get to decide what to do about them. There's an assumption that white collar job is automatically safe, but I'm sorry, if I'm looking for carcinogens, I can find plenty of carcinogens in the office. And in fact, there are a whole bunch that Valentina is not taking into account if you want to go off the deep end. Because if you want to go off the deep end, you know what? All carpets are laid down with glues, and there are people who are environmentally crazy who will talk about the dangerous glues in those carpets. And since a white collar job is inside, you're subjected to those fumes constantly
But my
in that
carpet's
Right.
new,
job.
John. Does that matter?
Yes,
What
the glue is fresh. That's
what
even
kind of glue did
worse.
they do? And by the way,
I don't know.
what kind of wood would they use in your house? Because the pressure treated woods, are they using
Gosh.
the right chemicals so there are poisons in them? And the bottom line is if I go online, I can basically need to live in Montana. But
Mm,
but the bottom line is, you know, what is the level of risk? Just because something has some possibility, is it great enough to ruin your life? And I don't know where Valentina lives, but if you're living in any kind of area that has any level of urban, there are plenty of more things that are potentially more dangerous that you're not doing anything about because you can't. So
hmm
you can start eating again. You could go through a lot of things that some people will claim are dangerous, but in terms of statistically, are they a significant danger? Probably not. Or more important, if you change everything, the amount of risk you'll have reduced will not be significant, and not a guarantee you won't get cancer anyway. Bottom line is, you might get cancer from a variety of things. You might get cancer from products you don't know about. And so you live in a world where, I mean, right now, you're filled with microplastics. And
Mm.
there is no way to get rid of them. They're in everything we eat. They're in our drinking water. There's no way to purify it. It is filling your body with microplastics. That's it. If they're carcinogenic, like we're all subjected to them, and I live in California, we have wildfires. So the rates of that is like apparently that'll increase, probability of lung diseases later. So welcome to climate change.
Right.
The world, everything is odds. And if you want to live in fear, whatever job you find, you will find something to avoid
Now,
because
hold on. I want to reflect, though, on something that you said earlier on that I think is
that's good because
directly
you should
relevant
always
to what,
interrupt me. Yeah, go on. We
sorry.
know I'll never shut up if you don't.
This is true.
I know that's true, which is why I have to interrupt. Thank God I'm assertive. Anyways, so in regards to like Valentina's specific situation, I want us to think through what would actually be required for this feared outcome to occur, right? So, number one, Valentina takes the job. Number two, she's exposed to carcinogens and somehow is aware that she's exposed to carcinogens.
Mm,
Number three, she develops cancer. And number four, there is a doctor who says, Valentina, I'm so sorry, but this is because you made the choice. This is specifically because this type of cancer is known for being related to people that work with homeless people that have these carcinogens and carry them around, right? And so she would have to actually, and each one of these, right? Not impossible, but all we have are the odds. And at each stage of this, we're sort of having to reflect on these sort of narrower and narrower possibilities. Not impossible, but I just want Valentina to be aware of all of those sort of permutations of her feared outcome that would need to occur in order for this to come into her awareness, which I think is an important step for us to take. But once again, as Jon said, when we talk about, the true exposure of this, it's her really contemplating maybe she will have all of these unlikely outcomes occur, and maybe she will find that one doctor who's going to say, you know what, Valentina, but for your work with the homeless, this wouldn't have happened to you. If you had only not listened to Jon, right, this would never have happened.
And
well, it's
and that might be true,
certainly
but something else might have happened that may have been worse.
right. And thank God,
That's
Mother
true.
Teresa didn't have this fear. Thank God most like, Jane Addams and Whole House didn't have this fear either, because
That's
all the
right.
wonderful work they did.
Work. That's so true. And
Yeah.
Valentina, if you
I
feel
want to bring back
inspired to work with
values
the
to this.
homeless, that's a values. Oh, yes, bring it
I just
back.
want to bring back
Go,
values,
Zach.
like regardless of contamination. What does it say? What do you value in life? Do you value, being able to help a stranger out, being able to help someone that's less fortunate out, or being quote unquote healthy, or lying to yourself that you're being healthier?
Yeah.
Well, you should never go outside. Well,
Or be
you
or
know,
be inside
no,
though. I
no, but
mean,
sunlight, we know sunlight, and UV, that leads to skin cancer.
Yeah,
And I can
I
wear,
am a
and
high risk of skin cancer in my family.
I can wear sunblock. I can always be shaded, but I'm still
Right.
in the sun. Like that's got to be worse than not being in the sun,
that's
and
true.
I can just take vitamin D supplements to make up for the lack of sunshine. Um,
And sun goes
but
through windows too, so you
oh,
should probably not have
I can,
windows.
no, UV windows.
UV windows, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, yeah. Now,
There is actually
um,
very safe machine though that you can use to try to supplement your light that
well, maybe I want to
you can
use,
buy.
vitamin D as long as I've made sure it's a good vitamin D that isn't, uh, mixed with other chemicals that might be carcinogens, and
That's
I'm
right.
gonna have to be careful about the air filtering in my house. I'll need a good air filter for purifying the air. But I still have to make sure what is the construction of my house and is it, not constructed with any products. And this what I'm saying, Valentina, this is just the bare minimum of what we need to do to screw up your life to become not have cancer. However, you might have a life where you don't have cancer that's not worth living. Because are
Might
you going to have
accomplish one goal without
are you
others,
going to
right?
have children and
Yeah.
never allow them in the sunlight and screw them up, or you're just not going to have children?
Mm.
Right.
And you have to find a spouse who wants to live with you, even though you'll never leave the home, to go out in the sunlight because, like, you don't want to get some sun exposure that might give you
Oh,
cancer.
boy, and what would that person look like? My goodness. That might
Well,
not be an ideal
oh,
match.
I've seen some of those matches. People, environmental contaminant OCD. Oh, two of
Yeah.
those people together is a scary thing because they're kind of untreatable because they buy full in. So it's like,
Right.
we don't want to be anxious, but we're not doing any of that dangerous stuff.
It's
Um,
interesting. Those couples, they seem to blog a lot, right? They seem to have like their own,
well,
right? Their own sort of TikTok
because it's
channels
as
and
if
stuff.
it's a real thing, so they can.
Yeah.
It's okay to say that out loud, so they can
Yeah.
find each other. But
It's true.
so everything is odds, and so I just have to rely on the data. And you might say, like nothing is zero. Everything is a problem, possibility, and there's a cost. Which way do you want your life to be second best?
Yeah.
Second best, and I can't say to Valentina that if you do all the things I can come up with to avoid cancer, you're not going to get cancer.
Just like
So
the
that would
reverse.
suck. You live your entire life this way and you get cancer anyway.
Right.
That actually is not unreasonable as an outcome.
No.
Yeah.
What saves us is luck.
Yeah.
That's
That's
it.
it.
So,
So I want to just mention this. This is super funny. So Lewis was coming to us from a
Okay.
different account
by the way,
because,
I'm glad to hear something funny after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry,
That's
No,
a
that's
nice
good.
I'm
change.
Go for it.
distracted. I told you guys I was going to be a little
Katie,
distracted
It's
while we're
okay. It's
monitoring our
okay.
Katie,
comments.
I was complimenting you.
Oh, thank you for my nice, smooth transition, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Till you blew it by apologizing.
So Lewis is coming from his son's account because he can't get onto the YouTube channel from his own account for some reason, and it's so funny because his name on there is Spidey Dominic, like Spider-Man
Yeah,
Dominic, which is really
I
funny.
see
My
that.
son has something similar, hilarious. Okay, and
Yeah.
so but I want to so Lewis actually has another question for us that I think is such a good one, and he says it's coming from a friend. So any advice for a mother with an 11-year-old child who constantly has to repeat the words "I'm sorry, I love you" every time they think, see, and hear bad stuff, right? And also before bed, she won't stop or rest until she has the reassurance. Let me see. She also has traits to do stuff in, oh, she has the tendency to do
You don't
stuff
have
in
to read.
certain
You don't have to read
numbers.
more.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
Yeah.
easy. This
She's
is
trying to
real.
get the reassurance before
Yeah,
she goes to sleep,
this is
right? Yeah.
really easy.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I say that, I'm thinking Zach's wondering, where's he going with this? This doesn't sound
No,
good.
I would usually. Well, I was trying to be like, is he mean easy or simple? Which one? Because sometimes those
Both.
people get okay,
Well, certainly simple.
good.
There is
Not
no
easy.
there is there is no advice that we're giving here that's going to help. Not because it's not helpful. This kid has a serious OCD problem, and this problem's not getting better until they can find an OC therapist who knows what they're doing. So the really hard part is finding a therapist who's actually a good OCD therapist, because there's a lot of money in OCD, so everybody claims to treat it even if they don't. And then there are a lot of people who kind of do the right thing, but they
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. John, it's John's internet.
That's okay. It's hey, at least it says this time. I
Zach,
mean,
I know, right?
I'll just piggyback off what
nice
I know he's
OCD
talking about.
books.
Hold on,
Oh, there we
John,
go.
you were frozen for a minute. So
You
now you're
were.
back to us. Yeah. See,
It
now
was a glitch.
whose internet is screwing us
It
up?
was a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah. I don't know,
My
they
favorite
are trying to
OCD.
stop me. Um,
That's
Yes.
finding a good therapist, that is hard. They may need help in finding an OC therapist who knows what they're doing, who, you know, is following the research and doing that. There are some nice books. Aureen Pinto Wagner uh, has some OC books about children that are really nice and good advice, and that'll be helpful. But you probably are going to need a good therapist to help.
yeah,
Because
Because
if it was as simple that
most
any of
likely
us
that's
get it,
not the only thing that's going on. It's not
well,
yeah,
just that. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, right. I mean, if we can answer in
Yeah.
3 minutes, it's not really a big problem, and I don't believe
Right.
that, But I
Right.
do believe, God, I want to try to help this kid now, because to have this kid go on for 10 years like this, it ain't gonna
yeah,
get easier.
Uh-uh.
right, right. Yeah, and I just, I mean, Lewis, if you can sort of get word back to this family of this 11-year-old, just to let them know how incredibly hopeful the prospect of treatment is, for a child who's experiencing these symptoms. There are wonderful gradual exposure techniques and a good OCD therapist. What's so amazing is that when you watch them work with children, children have an incredible propensity for learning this stuff, like almost better than adults, right? I know this one wonderful.
They're usually
She
You're
more
told me
frozen
this.
open-minded.
now. Yeah,
Oh, I'm frozen.
You're
not
good now.
anymore.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so that she works with children, and so one of the things that she does is, is that when she meets a child, she starts to get a sense of or sort of demonstrate to them how intuitive exposure is. And it's really cute. She told me this story one time about this little kid that came into her. It was like a 7 or 8 year old child. And so she found out ahead of time that the child had rabbits, right? And so she says to the child, I'm deathly afraid of rabbits. And I heard that you have a rabbit. And the child says, yes, I do have a rabbit. And so the therapist says, oh, I'm so afraid of rabbits. How do you spend so much time with this rabbit? And the child says, you know if I showed you a picture of my rabbit, you would see how cute my rabbit is. And if I was able to bring in my rabbit, you would see how sweet the rabbit is. And you wouldn't be scared anymore, right? So children have a really natural tendency to understand exposure. And so if you find a good OCD therapist, they capitalize on this. And most of the time, we can help children get around to the point that it will actually be the child that will say to the parent, okay, I only want you to provide me with one reassurance. Or right now I'm ready that I don't need the reassurance anymore. And I'm able to go to sleep without you providing me that reassurance. And it's like, this is an incredible thing. And that's what a good OCD therapist is going to do for this kiddo. John looks like he's
I had
thinking
a
about something else. Go ahead, Zach. I'm going to ignore John.
I am not working with children is not my specialty, but I did work with a 9-year-old once. And I'll never forget it because they said something that just it was just so cool. Uh they were in one of the places in the Midwest. I don't remember if it was the one outside Chicago, if it was Oconomowoc in Wisconsin. But they were doing, residential treatment, and they were telling me about it. I was like, for the first 30 days, I like just didn't really do anything. And I watched all these people, and then I saw like some people they like gotta go home. And so I was like, well, I kind of want to go home. So then like I started doing things. And then I noticed that I started getting better, and I saw the people that were still not doing things, and I stayed there. So like I guess I kept doing things, and I got to go home.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's right. Simple as
eh,
that,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
You remind
Yeah.
me of a young person I was working with, and he was telling me about telling one of his friends about treatment.
Yeah,
And he said, my therapist tells me to do all this really crazy stuff, but it
right.
works, so I listen. Not my ideal. I really wish he got it more, but
Right.
it was cute.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I have actually done some work over the years with kids, and it's like, it's really an incredible thing. But, I think just like adults, right? When they hear an explanation that makes sense, they really embrace it. And so,
Hmm.
I've treated a lot of kids with emetophobia, right? Fear of vomiting. And what's so interesting is that
That one's
they'll come
fun.
up with these, right, they come up with these ideas and these stories, right, like that'll be like, when you go, oh well, what are you worried about, and they'll be like, well, what if I throw up in front of my classmates, and I'll be like, well, okay, what if you did, throw up in front of your classmates, and they're like, I would just die. I'm like, okay, let's just assume that this was not a death type vomit. Let's just assume this is so then what would happen if you actually did? And sometimes they have these sort of catastrophic images in their head. Like, I had one kiddo that was telling me that the teacher would make them clean it up themselves in front of the class, and that they had this whole, and
Punishment.
as soon as they said it out loud, they were like, oh my gosh, that would never happen. I don't know why I thought that would happen. It
Mrs.
wouldn't
Johnson
happen.
would
And like that.
never make me clean it up. That's silly.
That's exactly
Eat
right.
it maybe, but
And
not clean it up.
Yeah.
oh, God.
This is a double
But
dare.
I want to say that Lewis tells us that the mom of that 11-year-old was watching, or is watching, and so it's really nice that we were able to kind of speak
Yeah.
directly to
What
her. I
city are
really
they?
really
What
enjoyed.
city is she
Yeah.
in?
Well, actually, Lewis is in the UK. I don't know if you guys knew
Oh,
that.
No,
I
Yeah,
did not.
Lewis is.
what is the mom in the UK, which is a little more problematic?
I'm not sure. Why is it more problematic? You're going to make recommendations for treatment?
Well, there's the slim chance. I mean, there are only a few people I trust anyway, but like, if I know what city she's in, I might have a recommendation.
Yeah,
Um, the UK is a little bit more rough.
right.
Hmm.
Although still, it's not impossible. Not
No,
impossible
no,
to
no,
find.
no. But and if she's stuck with the public health system, she's probably not going to be do it within the public health system there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it
See,
depends on a
John.
bunch of variables.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I
Doable, but
mean,
still variable.
and I
Hmm.
would encourage, everybody can reach out on our YouTube channel, and get in touch with us that way. And we're always willing to help people. I've gotten requests from other viewers about finding referrals in their area, and we'll do everything we can to. Oh yeah, UK bound. We're just. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher the name of this town.
In the West
Worcestershire,
Midlands.
Shire. Yes, West Midlands. There we go.
Yeah.
Worcestershire. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Thank
Like
you. I
Worcestershire
just
sauce. Say
it's
that
just
five
too
times
many
fast.
consonants, I think, for me to say. But yeah, and so, but it's not impossible. And so we'll let us see who we can kind of come up with there. But please feel free to have the mom reach out, and we'll do what we can. Um, yeah, no, failed NHS system won't help because she's not suicidal. Oh, yeah, and that's but this is heartbreaking, right? And the truth is that we face this in the United States too, that unfortunately a lot of the resources aren't available until we have like a really extreme situation. And we don't want somebody with OCD to wait until they're at that point that they're contemplating, they're contemplating self-harm, or that they feel they can't
Mhm.
live with their symptoms anymore. That's not the point at which we should intervene. We have to try to intervene sooner. At the very least, we're going to respond with some resources that are appropriate for children, because one of the things that I would always recommend to parents and to everybody really that's seeking out their own OCD treatment, go into meeting your new therapist armed with a book that has already trained you to know what you're looking for, right? And so there are a lot of wonderful treatment manuals for treating children, and a lot of self-help books for treating children with OCD. And so I would always recommend that a parent read that manual ahead of time, and then go in, and when they're meeting their therapist, remember, you're interviewing the therapist as much as the therapist is interviewing you. And if you have read, if you're an adult and you've read Jon's book, or if you have read one of these other wonderful treatment self-help books for working with children with OCD, it's amazing. You'll be able to ask questions, and you'll be able to figure out if that person is going to be a good OCD therapist for your kid or for you, right? And so be an educated patient. It will help. It will serve you so well. But anywho, we're up against the end of our hour. So any last words, guys? Other than to thank our awesome viewers for participating. It's always wonderful.
That is cool.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. I'm looking just so she knows, I'm looking through UK therapists,
I love that John's doing it in real time. That's
but
awesome.
Nobody's standing out as somebody
well,
recognize.
some people saying they do CBT, but like that doesn't really tell me they know what they're doing. I need to see the
Right,
words exposure and response prevention, which even that might not be enough, but it's like they need to say that.
right.
Right.
So I'm not having luck, and I'm sorry.
But we'll get back. We'll get back to you guys. We'll post somewhere on our YouTube channel. We're still trying to figure out how to make all of the comments visible, but
I
we'll make
mean,
sure that
we're
we
all
post follow-up
IOCDF
information.
members. I would
That's true.
hope the I stands for international. I would hope we would be able to know
We can
somebody
post
who
the
knows somebody.
IOCDF link, but if you go onto IOCDF for the UK,
Mm,
it's a little hard.
It's
There,
sparse.
there are some
mm,
people that are in
interesting.
London that might be able to provide telehealth, but I think as you go out to like the West Midlands area, people would probably have to drive pretty far if they wanted
Oh,
in-person
I'm finding some in,
therapy.
oh, that's Worcester. I don't know if that's near Worcestershire. Um,
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, we're not going to sit here while
yes,
John does
yes, ma'am.
his internet search. Okay. So any any last words, guys, before we finish up?
No.
Oh,
No.
this was a good one. I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, me
Uh,
too. Me too. I love it when we can sort of
We
respond directly to the
let's all,
experiences.
I think it's important for all of us to learn to live the second best life because the first best doesn't exist.
It's true.
so I
Boy,
have a question about
important
that real
message.
quick for
Yeah.
you. Why second best? Why not? Maybe it's third or fourth.
It could be, but
Okay, doesn't matter.
but I'm just going with it's not first.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
Nice try.
inferior, right? I call it the
Got it.
inferior life. Yeah.
Ah,
All right.
okay.
Anyways, but yeah, the idea of embracing the second best life, because that's in the end all we have, right? The inferior life, the one that we're living. All right, guys. Thank you so much to everybody who participated today. We'll be back on in just a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. We'll be back on streaming live. So please come back to us with your questions. We'd love to answer them. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Let me
Take
see how
care.
I stop our live.